Hello dear students, I hope that you all are in the best of your health and enthusiastic about your studies. Dear students, today we are going to discuss chapter number 4 of class 8 science, that is Materials, Metals and Nonmetals. Do you know from which substances all these objects are made up of? Solid objects, shiny objects, soft objects, metals and nonmetals. Now let's see what we are going to discuss in this chapter. Physical properties of metals and nonmetals, chemical properties of metals and nonmetals, and uses of metals and nonmetals. So let's start with the physical properties of metals and nonmetals. You must have heard about metals and nonmetals. We can recognize them easily with the help of their physical properties. First of all, we will discuss their very important property, that is hardness. Observe this picture here. We have taken 4 substances. 2 of them are metals and other 2 are nonmetals. Here the metals are copper and iron and the nonmetals are sulfur and carbon. You have observed that when copper and iron metals are beaten with a hammer, their shape changes. When these metals are beaten more forcefully and continuously, they change into thin sheets without breaking at all. The property which allows the metals to be hammered into thin sheets or foils is called malleability. Most of the metals are malleable. Gold and silver are the best malleable metals. Metals can also be drawn into thin wires. The property which allows the metals to be drawn into wires is called ductility. Gold and silver are among the best ductile metals. Copper, aluminium, iron and magnesium metals can easily be drawn into thin wires, so they are very ductile. Now let's compare the properties of sulfur and carbon with iron and copper. When we apply force on sulfur or carbon or we hammer on them, they easily break up into pieces on hammering. This shows that nonmetals are brittle in nature, whereas metals are hard. When metals like copper or iron objects are struck with the hard surface, a ringing sound is produced. Whereas when sulfur or carbon are struck with the hard material, no ringing sound produced. It means that metals are sonorous. They produce sound. Whereas the nonmetals are non-sonorous, as they do not produce any ringing sound when we strike them. You must have seen the bells in the temples and in your school. They all are made up of metals. Another very important property of metals and non-metals is their conductivity. To check whether any object conduct electricity or not, here we have taken an electric circuit. We will check the conductivity of the materials by checking different objects one by one in this electric circuit. When we connect a piece of iron or copper in this electric circuit, the circuit will complete and you will notice that the electric bulb present in the circuit glows. But when we place sulfur or a coal piece in the circuit, the electric circuit does not complete and you will notice that the electric bulb does not glow. By this activity, we can conclude that metals like iron, copper and aluminium are good conductors of electricity, whereas non-metals like sulfur, coal are poor conductors of electricity. When we apply wax candle on an iron piece and keep it in a boiling water, you will see that the heat energy of water will transfer to the candle easily through iron and the wax melts. But when we apply wax candle on a piece of carbon and place it in a boiling water, we will see that the heat energy of water will not transfer to wax and wax candle does not melt. By this activity, we can easily conclude that metals like iron are very good conductors of heat, whereas non-metals like coal are poor conductors of heat. Metals have a shiny surface. They are lustrous, whereas non-metals are dull in appearance. It means they are non-lustrous. Dear students, now we will learn about some metals and non-metals with their chemical symbols. We have a series of different metals and non-metals, and their chemical symbols are as follows: hydrogen, capital H; helium, capital He; lithium, Li; beryllium, Be; boron, B; carbon, C; nitrogen, N; oxygen, O; fluorine, F, capital F; neon, Ne; sodium, Na; magnesium, Mg; phosphorus, P; sulfur, S; chlorine, Cl; and argon, Ar. By these symbols, we represent or write these metals and non-metals. Dear children, now let's study the chemical properties of metals and non-metals. Metals react with oxygen, water, air and acids. When iron comes in contact with atmospheric oxygen and moisture, it becomes rusty. It means it converts into its oxide. Similarly, when we burn magnesium ribbon in the presence of oxygen, it converts into magnesium oxide. When the ashes of magnesium oxide are dissolved in water, it converts into magnesium hydroxide. To check the property of magnesium hydroxide, whether it is acidic or basic, we can test it with the help of litmus paper. You will observe that red litmus paper will turn into blue. With the help of this activity, we are able to understand that metals react with oxygen and they form basic oxides. Now, let's see the reaction of metals with water. Metals, when react with water, form basic oxides and heat is also released. Let's understand it with the help of an activity. Take a beaker of 250 ml. Fill it half with cold water. Now, carefully cut a small piece of sodium metal. Make it dry with the help of filter paper and now place it in a piece of cotton and put it in the beaker half filled with cold water. Students, you will observe that sodium reacts violently with cold water and it immediately catches fire. Now, if you touch the beaker, you will feel that the beaker is warm. If we test this solution for its acidic or basic nature with the help of litmus paper, we observe that red litmus paper turns blue. It shows that basic nature of this solution. It means metals react with water and form basic oxides. Children, you have observed that sodium reacts violently with water. That is why it is kept in kerosene oil. But children, we should remember that all metals do not react vigorously with water like sodium. Another metals like lead, copper, gold, silver do not react with water at all. Now, let's see the reaction of metals with acid. Metals react with acids and produce hydrogen gas. Let's understand this with the help of an activity. Take 5 milliliter of dilute sulfuric acid in a test tube. Take 20 milliliter of soap solution in a beaker. Now put some zinc granules in a test tube. We observe that reaction has started and some bubbles are formed. Now pass these bubbles in the soap solution with the help of a delivery tube. Bring a burning matchstick near the bubbles coming out of the soap solution. We will see that a popping sound occurs when the gas present in soap bubbles comes in contact with burning matchstick. This shows the presence of hydrogen gas. Now let's see the reaction of metals with bases. Metals react with bases to form hydrogen gas and they also release heat. Let's understand it with the help of an activity. Take a test tube and make fresh solution of sodium hydroxide. To make it, we can add 4 to 5 pellets of sodium hydroxide in 5 milliliter of water in the test tube. Your fresh solution of sodium hydroxide is now ready. Now put a piece of aluminium foil in this test tube. You will see that reaction has started. Now bring a burning matchstick near the mouth of the test tube. You will again heard a popping sound. It means the gas produced here is hydrogen gas. Because occurring of popping sound when a gas reacts with burning matchstick is a characteristic feature of hydrogen gas. Dear students, now let's see reaction of non-metals with water. Generally, non-metals do not react with water, though they may be very reactive in air. Such non-metals are stored in water. For example, phosphorus is a very reactive non-metal. It catches fire if exposed to air. To prevent the contact of phosphorus with atmospheric oxygen, it is stored in water. Non-metals do not react with acids. For example, let's do an activity. Take a little amount of sulfur powder in a test tube. Add some drops of sulfuric acid in it. We will observe that there will be no change in the sulfur powder. It means non-metals do not react with acids. Students, now we will discuss about displacement reaction. To understand displacement reaction, let's perform this activity. Take 500 milliliter beakers and label them as A, B, C, D and E. Now take about 50 milliliter of water in each beaker. In beaker A, we put copper sulfate granules. In beaker B, we put copper sulfate and iron nail. In beaker C, we put zinc sulfate and copper turnings. In beaker D, we put iron sulfate and copper turnings, and in beaker E, we put zinc sulfate and iron nail. Keep these beakers undisturbed for some time. Now record your observations. After some time, we will observe different changes occur in these beakers. First of all, let's observe beaker A. In this beaker, zinc displaces copper from copper sulfate solution. That is why the blue color of copper sulfate solution disappears and a powdery red mass of copper is deposited at the bottom of the beaker. Similarly, in beaker B, blue color of copper sulfate solution turns to green. In this beaker, iron sulfate is formed at the place of copper sulfate because iron displaces copper from its salt solution. You will observe that there are no changes in beakers C, D and E. Why? Beaker C and beaker E has zinc sulfate solution, but zinc is more reactive than copper and iron, and a more reactive metal can replace a less reactive metal, but less reactive metals cannot replace more reactive metal. That is why copper and iron cannot replace zinc from its salt solution. Whereas in beaker D, we have iron sulfate solution and copper turnings. As iron is more reactive than copper, that is why copper cannot displaces iron from iron sulfate solution. So dear students, displacement reactions is a chemical reaction in which a more reactive metal displaces less reactive metal from its salt solution. Now let's discuss the chemical properties of nonmetals. When nonmetals react with oxygen, they form oxides which are acidic in nature. These oxides turn blue litmus paper into red. Let's understand this with the help of an activity. Take a small amount of powdered sulfur in a deflagrating spoon. Heat it on a flame. As soon as sulfur starts burning, introduce the spoon into a gas jar or a glass tumbler. Now cover the tumbler with lid to ensure that the gas produced does not escape. Remove the spoon after some time. Add a small quantity of water into the tumbler and quickly replace the lid. Shake the tumbler well to dissolve sulfur dioxide gas in water. Sulfur dioxide gas dissolves in water to form sulfurous acid. Now let's test this sulfurous acid with blue litmus paper. It turns blue litmus into red and it shows that it is an acid. So, with the help of this activity, we can conclude that non-metals react with oxygen to form acidic oxides. Dear students, now let's see where metals can be used. Metals are used in the manufacturing of different machines. Metals can also be used in the manufacturing of vehicles, aeroplanes, satellites, different industrial equipments, utensils and water boilers, etc. Now let's see some uses of non-metals. Oxygen, which is a non-metal, is essential for all living organisms for breathing as oxygen gas. Non-metals like nitrogen and phosphorus are used in fertilizers to enhance the growth of plants and increase the fertility of the soil. Chlorine non-metal is used to disinfect water as it kills germs. Non-metals are also used in manufacturing of crackers, matchsticks, rat poison, dyes, fireworks and gunpowder. So dear students, now let's revise the chapter. Metals are generally hard, lustrous, sonorous, malleable, ductile and good conductors of heat and electricity. Metals generally reacts with oxygen to produce metal oxides, which are basic in nature. Some metals react with water to produce metal hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Non-metals are generally soft, dull in appearance, non-sonorous and are poor conductors of heat and electricity. Non-metals do not react with acids. Dear students, now let's practice some question answers, and I hope you all know the answers very well. Question number 1. Give any two physical properties of metals. Yes, metals are hard, malleable, ductile, sonorous, and so on. We can take any two properties from these. Question number 2. Iron is a poor conductor of heat and electricity. Is this statement true or false? Yes, this statement is false because iron is a metal and metals are good conductors of heat and electricity. Complete the reaction. CuSO4, that is copper sulfate, plus Fe, that is iron, gives dash and copper. Yes, in this reaction of copper sulfate plus iron will form FeSO4, that is iron sulfate, because here iron displaces copper from copper sulfate solution. Last question, question number 4. Metals react with acids to form which gas? Options are oxygen, hydrogen, chlorine and sulfur dioxide. Yes, the correct answer is hydrogen, because metals react with acids and form hydrogen gas. So dear students, with this we come to an end of this chapter, that is materials, metals and non-metals. I hope that you all have understood the chapter very well. Students, stay safe, keep healthy and keep studying. We all meet with another chapter soon. Thank you.